finagling around. It's Elaine Lindsay from a Business Banter Plus show. It's nice to see people. I'm very excited about today because I have waited a long time to introduce you to my spiritual mentor, the person my son Ryan calls the holistic missile. This is Patricia Wall. Hello, I'm so happy to have you here.
Hello, Elaine. This is going to be a very interesting interview because we've known each other for over 10 years. If you ask me questions, I'll be thinking she already knows that.
But I may be asking some different questions.
We'll see.
We'll see what happens. A little bit about Patricia. I will tell you that she was brought into my life by a friend who actually tried to get me to go see Patricia for about 3 years. And I was, well, hesitant doesn't even fit the bill here. I was so resistant to going because I really felt that I didn't know why, but this person was going to see through me, like right into the core. And it terrified me. And in hindsight, I am kicking myself. I should have gone running, screaming to her the second I heard about her because she completely changed my life. She actually gave me my life back. Can we explain this? Patricia Wall teaches self-mastery. She gave me the tools and can give you the tools to make things right in your world. And no matter what goes wrong, no matter what happens, I talk to Trish, and she has a great explanation for why I'm doing this to myself. Because, as I always say, we create our own reality, and now I'm going to throw it to Trish. Give me a bit more, and I would like you to start with, this is going to be really backwards, what did you want to be when you were a kid? What was your passion back then?
Oh, that's funny. I graduated high school at 16. I was one of those geeky kids.
Yeah.
And I thought I was going to be a journalist. And I wanted to be a journalist because I figured if I told people the truth, that things would change. So that was very naive. and then I grew up. I did 1 year at university, and then I left. I think I was just too young, and I went to work and did office stuff. I did a lot of different things, as exploring life. I went back at 22, and I did a computer science degree. I did that because I had hit the glass ceiling for women in the industry I was in. And the computer industry was new enough and intriguing enough. There weren't enough people, so there wasn't a glass ceiling. So I was excited about that, and I was excited about the whole concept of what computers could do. It's funny because when I got into learning about spiritual healing and alternative medicine, because of my own situation, I was in a 4-car pileup. What I discovered was a lot of people understood the theory, and they did the rah-rah, and you can do it, and it's all going to be great, and they didn't really have tools. And so I'm old enough that when I did computer science, if you wanted a database, you sat down and wrote one. Nowadays, you can go into Future Shop and buy one in a box off a shelf or download it. If you wanted anything, if you wanted the computer to do anything, you had to make it do it yourself. So I learned to take, wave your hands around. We kind of want sort of like that, and we need a red one, and we need a list. And, I learned to take that and turn it into simple step-by-step instructions, because that's how computers work. You can't be gray with a computer. You can't be vague with a computer. You have to be very specific and very precise. And so I think I took that kind of thinking and applied it to all this very kind of amorphous spiritual stuff. It was like, okay, if you want a shift in your life, then you need a set of steps that you can follow and be successful. And that's what I did. And that's what people tell me is different about what I do. That I give you concrete steps that you can tell that it's working or not working, and go through them on your own terms, and enough versions of tools that you can pick the one that suits you.
Yeah, because we're all different, and not everything fits everyone. Absolutely, I totally get that. And for everyone out there, it's interesting to know that I call her Trish. I would really have trouble if I have to keep trying to say Patricia, so I'm just going to go ahead and call you Trish. Trish is from Newfoundland, and all of what she talked about took place in Newfoundland. She went to school in Newfoundland, and she didn't join us in this lovely city until you were married, correct?
No, it's more complicated than that. So I left Newfoundland at 19 and moved to BC. I went back to Newfoundland to go to university at 22. I moved up here when I graduated. I went to work in high tech at 26.
Okay. See, I did not know that. That was something I didn't know, that you've actually been to BC. Cool. So, okay, that brings me to, and there's so much of what Trish does that is almost ephemeral, and for years we've tried to nail down in an elevator speech what is it that Trish does, and it's always been bigger than that, because in my instance, I was basically sleeping 20 hours a day when I met Trish. It didn't happen overnight. I had to do a lot of work with Trish to now become a more productive part of society, and that in itself is a little sort of vague. I get that, but let's go right to the point. You had a 4-car pileup, and let's explain to people what happened from that, and how did that suddenly morph into you becoming what you always called a bit woo-woo, and into that other realm, so to speak.
It's interesting. Before that accident, the closest I would have come to anything that had anything to do with energy would have been watching Star Wars. That's as close as I ever got, and I would have thought it was all bonkers. In that accident, I was badly hurt. I was badly hurt physically, and I had brain damage. So I went from the kind of person who was leading international projects in software development for big companies to drooling in a chair. I could stand for 3 minutes at a time, and then I would collapse. And it didn't matter what I was doing, I was going to hit the floor. After a while, the insurance company sent me for some assessments, they called it. And the doctors said, you will be like this for the rest of your life.
Wow. And
I couldn't read a story. I couldn't read Hop on Pop to my kid. I have 3 sons, At the time, Matthew was 5. So I couldn't read him a storybook. International project leader, can't read Hop on Pop. Not a good thing. I was upset. A friend of mine said, go see this chiropractor. I've had luck with this chiropractor. I was incapable of making a lot of decisions. It's hard to comprehend that state because my brain just didn't work. I couldn't string sentences together. Clearly that part's fixed. So I go off to see this chiropractor. She did something called craniosacral therapy, which is a British technique of energy medicine. And in one treatment, literally one treatment, I went from being able to stand for 3 minutes to being able to stand for 20 minutes. And I went, okay, I don't care how this works. I wouldn't have cared if she had a bone rattle and danced around me. I wouldn't have cared. This was working, I'm in.
Yeah.
I don't care, I'm in. a friend of mine phoned the chiropractor because I wasn't real capable and said, what can I do to help? She said, we should take these courses. So, my friend organized the courses. She would come get me, bring me there. I'd sit and drool. The early courses, I really wasn't very present.
Let me interject one thing, just to give people an idea of sort of where your head was. Your father is a doctor.
Yep.
So you grew up in very traditional medicine. So I just want people to understand, like, sort of how far away from what you knew this was for you.
It's funny because as I recovered, I studied, and the more healthy I got, the more I studied. I studied with guys you had to have translators to work with. I traveled to courses. I was in, and I'm a type A. So when I was in, I was in. I had my parents live in Newfoundland. I hadn't seen them. At that point in time, my mother had a lot of chronic illness. So she had problems with irritable bowel. She had degenerative disc disease. She had severe arthritis. So she had like a neck brace, and she could sort of kind of get up the stairs on her own. To get down, she'd have to get someone to hold her shoulders. She had all kinds of dietary restrictions. I wasn't saying a word. Then my brother was getting married, and so my parents were going to fly to my place, and together we were going to fly to my brother's place, and I was going to have 2 weeks with my mother, and I couldn't do nothing. So I phoned them up and I said, knowing what my dad's attitude was going to be, I need you to not say anything. I'm going to do this stuff that I learned and helped me, and I just need you to not say anything. If it doesn't work, then you can give me a hard time. I don't want to be dealing with negative expectations. So I worked with my mom, and my dad kept his mouth shut, which was very kind. And at the end of 2 weeks, she danced at my brother's wedding and ate Chinese food.
Wow.
And my father's jaw lived in his lap for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, if I wasn't there to see what you did, I wouldn't believe this. I said, it's okay, Dad, I didn't believe it either. and that's how I've always felt. People are often just afraid, I think, of afraid of it being weird, or afraid of being deceived, or afraid. And I know how I felt, so I'm totally okay with that. They say, I don't believe in this. I say, that's fine, neither do I. Not a problem. My mother, they would phone me. They went home. I went home. They came back. Dad phoned and said, well, I have to learn everything you know. I can't believe this. They came back. They spent 2 months. He studied. And then they would phone me and say, we walked around Kent's Pond today. That's 10 miles.
Wow. Wow.
So she went from I can't get up over the stairs to a 10-mile walk.
Yeah.
So, at that point in time, and that's a long time ago now, I thought, if I never do anything else with this, I'm good.
Yeah.
Right? You know yourself that it gave you back that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are people who, I don't think people ever seek out alternative stuff just out of boredom. I think they come because they're desperate. They come because they have fibromyalgia and they're in chronic pain. They come because they have depression and they can't see out. They come because their relationship just isn't what they need it to be. They come because their family is just not happy, or they're not happy, or they're not satisfied. And
they come because they've tried everything else.
Yeah, everything.
Absolutely.
And they really don't expect it to work. They really don't. They just don't want to give up, and they don't know what else to do. So when it does work, I have to admit to a certain smug glee, that really worked. Yes, I know.
Yeah, I have to admit, in a couple of workshops, I've seen that little creeping grin sometimes when somebody finally gets something that you had obviously been putting in front of them for a long, long time.
It's very satisfying.
Very cute.
It's joyous, How do you beat this?
Oh, absolutely.
I get to give people happy.
Exactly, and now that's an absolute gem. You get to give people happy.
Yeah.
I totally love that. Well, here's my question for you, okay? If you had to clinically explain what this, I mean, because it's a passion for you. What you do is a passion. And you've always said, it's not from me, it's through me. Explain what that means.
I think I have a gift. I think that I had major brain damage in that accident. Um, frankly, before the accident, I was a pretty bright kid. It changed the way my brain operated. And I think it gave me a different perception, and I remember watching a TV show. It was about this guy who specialized in micro expressions, and he could sort of magically see all this cool stuff because of these weird little signals he saw on people's faces. So maybe it's like that. Maybe it's something I'm seeing just because my brain was changed, or maybe it's spiritual, or maybe it's from God. Maybe it's some form of intuition. I don't need to put a label on it any more than I needed to understand why it was that craniosacral therapy allowed me to stand for 20 minutes. I don't even care. I know what my personal beliefs are. I believe it's a gift. I believe
Absolutely.
it's a gift. I don't need anybody to buy into that, and I totally respect other people's beliefs. To me, there's no challenge to anybody else's beliefs.
No, no.
It is, if my brain was changed because of a car accident, isn't that God's will? Uh, if it is a wiring change, that's some biological thing, well, okay, then that's how it works.
Absolutely.
Does it matter? I
Yeah,
think
truly, truly. Uh, you do offer all kinds of different tools, and where I was going with that is people will understand. A lot of people understand the uh, term channeling.
mm-hmm.
Okay, because you have so many useful and incredible guided meditations and different mental and visualizations that we can all use. Explain the sort of give people a very layman look at what is channeling, and how did that part start? How did you know eventually to put that label there?
I had never heard of it. This is the label that other people gave me.
Yeah.
After that car accident, I started to think of things and see things, and it was kind of like dreaming. It was like lucid dreaming. And anybody who understands anything about shamanism has heard of that concept as visions. Anybody who's into deep meditation has experienced visions. So I would have visions. Some people consider that a form of deep creativity, and some people consider it as coming from guides. It's again, I know what I feel about it. It doesn't matter. It is what I do know for sure is that the vision that I have that results in the tools that I have, I think it's colored by the life I've had and the education I've had and the way that my thought process works to create really concrete tools, and those tools work. The results speak for themselves. I think to be a channel is similar. It's similar to being someone who's extremely creative, in the sense that they can shut out the interference of logical thought and shut out the noise of mainstream life and just kind of really tap into outside the box thinking and what is possible. The most common response I get when I say something that is considered, a channeled comment to somebody, I see this, is, I never thought about it like that. I didn't know that was possible. I've had medical people come through my workshops. And, you know, when at first when medical people came through my workshops, it was very intimidating for me because I required, my background science, I required to understand why all this stuff works. So I did a lot of study to understand how the brain worked and the subconscious worked and behavioral stuff. So I would connect the dots so that it said, okay, here's how your brain works. So you can do this, and this is why it'll work, and here's how you do it. So the first time I had a psychologist come through, I said, you know, I'm explaining this stuff about the limbic system and the brainstem, and you know more about that than I do. And they said, you know, but I never thought about it the way you're explaining it. And it makes total sense. And what you're saying is right, but I just never thought about it that way. And in their education, they're not taught to think of it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's just another way to look at it, a different way to look at it. That's cool. You know, I think, you know, because people will come back to me and say, oh, you know, I read this book. I remember the first time somebody said to me, oh, I didn't know you studied such and such. And I thought, I haven't. But people will say, oh, you're a Buddhist. Well, yeah, there's some cool Buddhist stuff out there, and it sounds like me, and there's some other stuff out there that sounds like me, because, you know, truth is truth, right?
Absolutely.
You know, and so it's going to sound like it's, I think it's the tools that make it distinct. I think it's that ability to say, here's the thing that you need to pay attention to. Here's the thing that will make a change for you, the one specific thing. And that's true, like whether it's a person or a relationship or a business or even bringing something to life. You know, people often come to me to bring, you know, I have this idea and I want to make a business out of it or make a product out of it, whatever. You know, here's the thing you need to pay attention to make it work, to make your marriage work, to make your friendship work, to make your relationship with your kid work, to make your relationship with yourself work. Here's that thing. Here's the thing. The one thing. This is the thing. And you know, it's never the thing they think it is.
Yeah. Oh, that's very true. That's very, very true. Part of what you do, and I want us to really show people how, well, as hard as it is to explain and label what you do, what you offer can be boiled down to really simple concepts, because at the core of anything and everything related to us, it is us basically driving the bus.
Yeah.
Okay. We create our own reality, and you know, different people, Deepak Chopra and a lot of different Jack Mize and Canfield, and people talk about things like souls traveling in packs and what happens in this life. You know, lots and lots of people talk about karma and past lives, and you bring baggage with you into this life. You choose what it is that you plan to experience in this life. And that, for me, on meeting you, I think was the most incredible concept that something deep inside just knew that for me that made sense. And can you, maybe you'll explain it certainly better than I do, but the concept of, you know, the soul chooses the ride, you know, the big amusement park or the little tiny baby cars. Go ahead, you explain it better than me.
So and again, I have visions. What I see when I look at, you know, what we'd call the soul of a person, kind of looks like an electrical field. And my take on karma is, I think, different than the traditional take because of what I see. What I see is that people form beliefs. And so in a lifetime, they'll form a belief, and that belief then is carried. It's like a wire added to their electrical field, and it creates a tune, it creates their song. You know, people have like a soul song. And so that existence of that additional wire changes their music. And it's the music that they have that calls to the parents they end up with. They will have matching songs. So an example would be, I had a guy come because he was a workaholic. And when I looked, he had had a life where he was an optimist in medieval times. So that's that, they believed they could turn lead into gold.
Yeah.
Now, the funny thing was, the guys who would do this kind of stuff, they were the guys who already had money. Because I got to tell you, the peasants didn't have time to be fooling around with lead and gold. These were the people who had money and they got into it. They believed that gold was the highest order. It was the closest to God. So it wasn't about trying to take something, quote, worthless lead and turn it into something expensive gold. It wasn't about making money. It was about achieving enlightenment. It was about getting closer to God. So they would bankrupt themselves with these experiments. It wasn't about getting the gold. The thing is, the belief he formed was that gold was the most important thing. He became obsessed with it. So if you think about it, in his life, that was actually a spiritual thing. But the belief that he framed was gold is the most important thing. Well, in this lifetime, in this experience, that made him a workaholic.
Yeah, yeah.
And he had to let that go. So I see lots of stuff like that. The thing is, it isn't a punishment. It isn't you have to climb up the ladder. It isn't, because your soul is perfect. You can't, your soul is a part of God. You can't break that. You can't need something as a soul. However, you can form these beliefs, and these beliefs affect where you're going and what you're going into, and you'll find the life that matches the beliefs. You'll find the life that matches the beliefs. So if you form a belief about persecution, guess what you're going to be living?
Yeah.
If you form a belief about poverty, guess what you're going to be living? Right? And so to change your life is about removing those beliefs. It's about saying, oh, here's the belief, now we can let that go. And there's a process for letting them go. And that will make huge shifts. And you kind of go, how did that happen? Because who you are feels different. The closest I can get to, and having worked with so many people over the years, is that you feel right inside. You feel right and you feel certain about that. I know who I am. I know that what I am is right. So I think most of the time people feel like they're flawed, or they should, or there's not enough, or they should be better, or something, and the more you do this work, the more you feel that what you are is right, and expressing who you are into the world is the right way to live, and that's what creates abundance. That's what creates happiness, and that's what makes you feel good about being you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know, because we have known each other more than 10 years, we have talked about the shift we see in the world, that more and more people are becoming open, if not already open, to the fact that there is just more than what this human form can see or feel or touch. There is just so much more, and it's not just about we humans. I mean, every living thing is the same. We are all created from energy.
Well, and it's fun to watch the science catch up with the stuff that in India and China they've known for 5,000 years. I have a student who's she's doing what they used to call it biofeedback back in the 80s. Where basically, they hook you up to a bunch of sensors, and they teach the Olympic athletes to see the emotion they're experiencing. Yeah. Because the sensors basically read what's going on emotionally, and they learn through meditation to steady that and calm that so that they can be in their best performance. And it's hilarious because it's the same thing.
It is.
It really is the same thing. It's about connecting to knowing the truth of what you are and who you are, and being able to live that, to let go of the things that the beliefs that trap you in feeling wrong, which free you, to kind of in some ways be a better person. Although that sounds kind of judgmental. um, the if everybody understands that body language exists, everybody understands that you can walk in a room and feel like, oops, something's wrong. You know, people are upset, or people
Yeah.
are sad, or people are angry. You know that that happens. I mean, is it a pheromone? Is it something that you smell with the back of your brain? Or is it something you sense because it's the energy? You know, they used to call it a vibe. Well, is it a vibe? What does that even mean? So I think that I think everybody's intuitive. I think there's more to our brains than we understand, and I think some of that is the sensory perception that there are smells that we give off. There's smells that we give off when we're afraid. There's smells that we give off when we're shopping for a mate. So some of that is our sensation, like it's a biology thing, and some of it is that other sixth sense that we have, that is our intuition, that is the more than the five senses. It's the sixth sense. I don't think it's new. I think that our standard of living has become such that there's more room in our lives for us to discover these things. You know, we have less people being hungry, and
Yeah, that's true.
I think that
And I know that, to say, I know that there are many who would be confused by what you just said.
what confuses them.
But, well, there are less hungry, for instance.
Ah,
But I mean,
in
that's true.
America, we have a pretty good standard of living. So suddenly, all of these people are discovering their intuition. Maybe it's because they have time to. You know, and it's ironic because in countries that are considered more third world, you know, China and India, where this knowledge has existed for 5,000 years, perhaps it's because they had to live closer to their senses and closer to the earth and more connected to what they're experiencing. Just to survive. So it's funny, you know, they came at it from survival and we came at it from prosperity.
Well, they didn't have the distractions. I mean, in the Western world, we are bombarded by, you know, technology and music and you know, everything you can possibly think of. The Western world has in spades. This is where we've kind of got it all. And there are, you know, there are those among us that certainly don't, even in the Western world. But I think you hit the nail on the head, because it's at the point where we do have more time that we can do some reflection, some, you know, take a little look at self.
And I think it's funny because people will say, but we're busier than we've ever been.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, we are. However, we probably have food in the fridge. You know, most of us do. We're very lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I have to agree with that. So, what would be your suggestions, or one, for people who maybe they're not quite sure, they realize, or they see others, you know, sometimes you see your friends are changing in ways you just don't comprehend, and maybe they're looking for something not as actively as others, but what would you suggest as a first step in looking into this bigger, more esoteric picture, if you will?
I think that depends on why they're looking. So if somebody is, you know, if somebody's having health problems, I would think a great first step would be a Reiki class. Be aware. There's so many flavors of alternative medicine out there. You know, it's comical. And most of them think that they're the only one and the best one, and it's kind of like coaches. You know, they all think they're the best one. Reiki is a simple, you know, it's a very simple, easy to take, and be very careful. Shop for your teacher. Find one that makes sense to you. You know, find one who's not pushy and is easy going. Because that's a simple way to get into the health side of it. That's the first class I took, was a Reiki class. If you're curious about the spiritual stuff, then get some books. Like check out Deepak Chopra. Read something about Buddhism. See, taste. I mean, that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Taste a bunch of things and see what speaks to you,
Mm-hmm.
because it needs to be the thing that speaks to you, right? If it's about learning who you are and what will make you happy, I've got free stuff on my site. You can try it out. There are free meditations there. There's 10 years of articles. There's tons of stuff that you can check out at no cost. There's also books. There's also recorded meditations. I mean, there's everything you could want. You can try it at no cost to yourself.
And I'll make sure that those links are available when the show is over. That'll be on the show site as well, so that people can easily get to your links, because there's more than just TTLO. There's Teaching Self-Mastery, there's Ocelota.com, and there's Going Beyond Success, and the Relationship Challenge. So I'll make sure that all of those links are available.
Great, thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. So give me an idea, next 5 years, where are you going with this?
I gotta tell you, I don't plan like that because of the guided thing,
Mm-hmm. I do.
I have a lot of books swimming around in my head, and so I want to get some of them on paper. There's other stuff that doesn't need to be in books, so I'll probably do some video stuff. So I think one of the challenges, my work has always been demand driven. So I never set out to work with people. I never set out to teach anything. In the beginning, I was only interested in getting well. That's all I cared about. And what happened was people would see this and they'd say, well, what about that health problem? Or could you help me with my headache? Or could you help me with this thing? And I started having a practice out of sheer self-defense because there's only one of me and I only got, 2 hands. And it was taking over my life. So I said, okay, fine, I'll do this. I'll set aside hours and I'll see people. And then I discovered, as I was still at that point taking courses, I would see people at classes, and sometimes you'd see the same people and you go have lunch with them or something, and I'd say, I wish I knew how to do this. And I'd say, but you can't. Oh, you just need to do that. And they'd say, well, how did you learn that? And I'd think, well, how did I learn that? And the next thing I was teaching classes to teach the stuff that I'd figured out, and I drawed and I channeled. And so it's been, people wanted this class and they wanted that class, and I literally have always been scrambling to keep up with that. So I've reached a point where it's time for me to kind of take a step back and write some books and do some of that development. It has to happen, because if I don't step back, the demand will always keep me going way more hours than there are in a day.
Absolutely.
So I think that's going to happen. I think that there's going to be more of creating some books and things like that, some videos and stuff. I want to start doing things like hangouts for kids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Offer things so that the people who don't have access can have access. I'm teaching a workshop for kids next Saturday to teach the kids. Are sensitive and they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how to interact with the world. It can be really upsetting for children to have angry people around, and they don't know how to cope with it. It can be really upsetting for kids to deal with bullying in school, and they don't know how to cope with it.
Yeah.
So this is very practical. I'm very practical. How do you live with this thing? So I think there's only one of me, and if I want people to have access to this, I have to make it more available.
Absolutely.
Why I have a bunch of websites now.
Yeah.
A bunch of other stuff.
But I think that's a really important point, and the fact is there is only one of you, but this and other mediums, you don't have to be in the room.
No.
Your wisdom and what you offer and your tools are very easily explained and passed on, in a hangout. I mean, we've often talked about different things in Hangouts and working with children. Yeah, I think that's fabulous. And the fact is, as much as learning how to live in the world can be difficult for them, children are much more open. They haven't had the years and years of those, you know, limiting beliefs that we've all built up as adults, and they're certainly much more open to using something that can help them. And what a gift is that, to give children a better way to handle themselves from the get-go.
Yeah, I mean, my own kids, it has been so much easier for them to use these kinds of tools and stuff. And they'll say, you know, something will happen, and I'll say, does that bother you? And they say, no, that's honey, Mom. That doesn't bother me at all. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, my oldest son, his first book just came out. It's called The Science of No, and I'm so proud, as you well know.
Yeah.
It's about how to deal with confrontation and conflict, how to be able to be true to yourself when there's so much social pressure and expectations and stuff.
Yeah.
It is life-changing, and it's challenging because it'll challenge what you believe about yourself and about relationships and what's possible for you. But it's phenomenal. So I'm very proud of that. It's fascinating to me to see how easy it is for the younger people.
Yeah.
I've done, ever since you taught me about Hangouts. I work with the Hangouts. That's funny. Hangouts. I do interviews with people all the time. I do my appointments with people all the time on Hangouts. And my limitation is I only speak English, unless you count Luffy as a second language.
Yeah, and we do. We definitely count it as a second language. The tools, as we've said, are definitely available on her site, and there are a lot of free things that are available in the shop for people that are just starting out. For people who regularly do meditation, I strongly suggest you do try this, because it's different. This is something that I hear over and over from people is, wow, like, that's really different. You can often cut to the core, and sometimes it can be a little startling, because it's you're very direct, and it's obvious when you're working with people that you're very invested in the people, which I think is phenomenal. What's can be a little, I guess, confusing for people is that there are so many tools. Now, in my estimation, it's like, you know, some people like blue, some people like acid green, some people don't. Like you. You know, we all have different flavors that we prefer. We have different colors that we prefer. So to me, it only makes sense that there would be different tools that would be comforting to different people.
Yeah. Yeah. And if there's one way to do it, there's probably 50.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And, you know, when I do a weekend workshop, which is sort of the baseline, I mean, you can come into, I have monthly workshops, I've been doing them for over 10 years. You can come into those, you can do it online, live, or you can get CDs, or you can get downloads, whatever. But when I do the weekend workshop, it's here's kind of the whole tool set that you need. You can do anything if you have this tool set. Every single tool I teach in that weekend workshop, I could give you 5 alternatives without even scratching my head. And I'm not kidding when I say, and I could probably give you 50.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. The great thing about that, though, Trish, and this is what, you know, probably what I want people to take away. Each tool, in and of itself, for some people, they only need one tool.
That's right.
They don't need all of them, or, you know, it's whatever resonates with you. And there are certain meditations, Crystal Cave is one of them that is a particular favorite of mine. And there are some that I don't like at all. And that too is okay.
Yes.
Because
one speaks to you.
Yeah.
I had one engineer come to the workshop. He said, I only use the self-breathing. That's the only way it is. I do everything with that. And you can. You know, because in the end, what a tool is a way to focus your intention. It's like, you know, if you were going to plant a tree, There's a lot of ways to dig a hole. You know, you can dig a hole with a shovel, you can dig a hole with a trowel, you can dig a hole with a stick. If you really wanted to, you could get a steam shovel. There's a lot of ways to do it. What is the best one for you? You know, it depends on your circumstances and what you enjoy. Why wouldn't you have a lot of different choices? And it's not, I don't think it's a confusing array, because it's about looking at what is your goal. So for instance, I mentioned cell breathing. Well, cell breathing can be used for shielding. Cell breathing is really powerful if you've had some kind of physical trauma. You know, if you've had an assault, if you've had just a bad experience. It's good for flushing that out of your body so you don't hold. If you're haunted by bad memories, then unlock is probably where you want to go. So it's, you know, depending on what you want it for, it's just like, you know, a screwdriver is good for something and a hammer is good for something else. It's probably not hard to know which one you want. The thing is, if it is a haunting memory, then you start with unlock. Well, if you don't like unlock, then there's a different one.
Absolutely.
Right?
And you know, that brings me to an interesting story you told about zebras, canoes, African plains animals.
I say that zebras don't have anxiety. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
If you're a zebra, there you are on the savannah. You know, over there are the water buffaloes, and over there are the lions. But you don't see the zebras standing around going, "Oh my God, what if the lions come and get me? Do you think they're over there thinking about coming to get me?" They don't get anxiety. So why do we get anxiety? You know, for a zebra, the lion, which considers them dinner, is right there. They can see it. It is a looming threat at all times. Why aren't they anxious? So why are we anxious? And the reason is because our limbic system, in the human brain, our limbic system anticipates threat in a way that, you know, those zebras don't. And you can retrain your limbic system so that it behaves differently and it interacts with the world differently. So it's not anxious.
Exactly. And the other thing was, after a lion attacks and perhaps a zebra gets taken down,
Cousin Harry's gone.
Pardon?
Cousin Harry's gone is now, you know, is now lion's lunch, right?
Yeah. But the rest of the zebras have a way to shake off that extra adrenaline that, you know, when you suddenly something frightens you. As humans, we've got nowhere for that to go. We've not taught ourselves. You know, the zebras, they do this shimmy and shake thing, and if you look at anything, deer, any antelopes, they all have that same sort of, after an event where they've done a big run and what have you, they all sort of shimmy and shake from tip to tail, like right from the head back, and it's like they've left all that extra adrenaline and garbage in the dust, and it's over.
Yeah. They do a central nervous system reset. Is what they're doing when they do that twitch, and they literally, if you watch the animal, they twitch right from their ears and they work their way down. It's as if they were shaking off a fly. Every inch of their skin, they twitch all the way to their tail, and they are doing a central nervous system reset. And they truly have let go. For them, the event is over.
Yeah,
they're no longer scared. They're done. You know, when it happens to young animals, they will do play. So, for instance, one story was about two lion cubs, and a predator came along and was a threat, and one of the other lions dealt with it. But the lion cubs then spent quite a bit of time playing. One was the predator and would chase, the other was the predator and would chase, until they felt that they had learned what they needed to learn to deal with that. And then they shake it off. It's over. It's over. So they don't carry that threat with them. They are absolutely aware of their environment. They are able to evaluate the existence of a threat. And so humans actually become inept at analyzing the existence of a true threat because they're so busy anticipating threats that may or may not be present. If you think about this like traffic, you know, if you're in heavy traffic and you're driving along, you know, at any given time, someone could, in fact, change lanes on top of you. But if you drive like that, you're going to make yourself a nervous wreck, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can tell the kind of person who's going to change lanes on top of you because you can tell by how they drive.
Absolutely.
And if you're alert without being afraid, if you're alert, you will see that kind of driver and, get away from him.
Avoid them.
Like,
Yeah,
let's get away from that guy. Let's get ahead of him or behind him, but just not beside him.
Yeah.
Because they'll do it. They absolutely will do it. And you will be able to tell they're going to do it.
Yeah.
Is that an intuition? Is it, watching them jerk around as they're driving? Whatever. It works. That's the important thing.
Absolutely. And because our limbic systems, and we're hearing more and more about the limbic system.
Because the science catches on.
Yeah, it's really exciting because everywhere you turn now, you're hearing these things that we've been, talking about for years. But the limbic system hasn't really progressed from, as you used to say, the time of the saber-toothed tigers. It's still back there. It was, it's for our survival, but we don't have any of those issues. There aren't saber-toothed tigers. We don't have the huge life-threatening concerns we did back then. And now anything and everything the limbic system tends to, signify is a threat. And it can be, something so small. I know one last story from you about, we talk about what is it, cats? The saber-toothed tiger and the uncle with the red hair.
Yeah. So the story I use, you picture a toddler sitting playing with some dinky cars or something like that. Mom's off in the kitchen making spaghetti. She goes to fill up the big pot with the water, and she drops the pot into the sink, and it makes a big racket. Startles the kid. The kid cries. So mom comes out of the kitchen, calms him down, life's good. Off she goes back to finish making her spaghetti. And then the cat walks through the room, and the kid cries again. So mom comes out. What's wrong with the kid? He doesn't really know. Like, he's 2. He can't tell her. Here's what happened. When he got startled, that activated his threat reaction response. Okay? Now, he's going to take in everything that's around him because a possible warning sign for a threat. Because back in the cave, if something big and hairy was a threat, then probably all the big hairy things were a threat. So we have this setting that kind of evaluates everything that happened at the time of the threat to say that could be the warning for next time so that you survive. So it just so happened that the cat was in the room. Probably the cat got up and jumped when the startling noise happened. Now there's an association with the cat. He associates the cat with the threat. Now, the interesting thing about this story is that he didn't get hurt. He got startled. The threat reaction response sets up this filing system that says this could be a threat. Just for the record, this is how you get allergies. This is how you get allergies, because you have a threat reaction response in the presence of an allergen, and that causes your body to treat the allergen like a threat. So this kid could end up allergic to cats. So now he's afraid of the cat. He doesn't understand that. Mom definitely doesn't understand that. Life goes on. A couple of weeks later, they have Uncle, whatever you call him, over for dinner, and he happens to have a beard the same color as the cat. And the kid cries. And this is because we have generalization of stimulus. And what that means is, a big hairy beast might be a threat. Anything with hair might be a threat. Anything with big teeth might be a threat. So fur on the cat, fur on the uncle with the beard, maybe he's a threat too. We'll treat him like a threat. It isn't because the kid's shy. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And God, I could keep you on here all day because we could certainly keep talking about this all day. There's it's truly fascinating to me, and I have to reiterate and say thanks, because Trish really did give me my life back. If you want to find out more about Patricia Wall, her main site is TTLOInc, which is Take the Lid Off, which is, I think, a very good acronym, TTLO. Now, I will have all the links to get in touch with Trish and to be able to find all of her sites, go check out her store. Check out the free meditations. There's tons and tons of fascinating articles, everything from relationships to your children to your job. Do check it out. Trish, I want to thank you very much for coming on the show and spending this time with me. I'm Elaine Lindsay. This is Business Banter Plus, and I will no doubt see you soon.
Yes.